I've found someone else. Let's get a divorce. In the midst of our catastrophically broken relationship, my husband Mike asked me for a divorce. Mike always berated me for my lifestyle choices. But without any objections, I agreed to the divorce. Because I knew the real reason why he wanted to divorce. Fine, there we go. I signed a lawyer's contract. When I handed it back to Mike, he looked at me, puzzled by my lack of resistance. I'm not gonna refuse the divorce. I'll make sure you see hell in this world. Right after the divorce process started, I was on my way somewhere. My name is Christine. I'm a wife of Mike, CEO of a real estate company. Currently, I'm being handed a contract of a lawyer who assists divorce from my husband, who I've been with for 10 years. This all began about 6 months ago. Business still keeping you busy? Mike, who runs the real estate business, was rarely at home. It wasn't like this when we first got married, but business must have picked up, and he had more work-related engagements. It became normal for him to be out on business dinners. On weekends, there was no family time, and he was always out. I spent many lonely days at home. We don't have children, and every time Mike left me alone at home, I wondered if it was because I couldn't give him a child. Mike loves kids, so marrying me, who can't have children, must have been a miscalculation on his part. After being married for over 5 years, our intimacy dwindled. One day, I reached my breaking point and tried to negotiate some family time with Mike. After dinner, Mike was indulging in his hobby. I standed in front of him and tried to talk to him, but he didn't respond. I sighed as Mike wasn't paying attention to what I was saying, as if he was too engrossed in a radio broadcast, probably a horse race. Come on! Go! There! Pass them! Mike continued to cheer with enthusiasm, clenching fists. He didn't even notice me right in front of him. He didn't seem to care, probably because I was not even in his field of vision. How is this even a marriage? Normally, if someone's standing right in front of you, you'd notice, right? Am I the one with the skewed perception? As I was lost in these thoughts, Mike, presumably after the end of the race, slammed his headphones onto the couch and started ranting. Damn it, what's that jockey doing? Get it together, man. I put a lot of money on this. From his words, I figured he was listening to a horse race. I tried to speak up, prioritizing our marriage over a horse race. Hey, I've something to discuss. Can't you see? I'm not in the mood for idle chatter right now. What's so important? If you have something to say, spit it out. Mike, clearly frustrated from his loss, snapped at me. I was disappointed by his rough words and bad attitude. Why do I have to bear the brunt of your frustration from a lost bet? Before I knew it, my sadness poured out in words, and Mike, who heard my remark, shot back in an irritated manner. What did you say? I've been patiently waiting for your horse race to finish because I needed to talk. Why am I being treated this way? What have I done? Perhaps I felt lonely being ignored. Whenever he was home, it seemed like he would spend time on his hobbies and never think about me. As long as she provides money, it's fine. It became clear he was only with me for this reason during our argument. Would you quit nagging already? You're always whining. You're hardly ever home. And when you say you're working on the weekends, you're out entertaining. When you are home, you're lost in your world. What am I to you, a maid? I didn't marry you for this. That was the moment when all my pent-up feelings exploded. I had never raised my voice like that before, but I couldn't bear Mike's cruel words and actions. When we were dating, he was devoted and always treated me like a princess. He always put me first in everything and loved me endlessly. Having spent days filled with love, I believed marrying him would ensure a happy marital life. That's why I accepted his proposal. Initially, everyone was envious of our close relationship. Everyone was like, "Mike is a catch, isn't he?" Blessing our union, I thought the happiness would last. But that only lasted the first 2 years. After that, his selfishness and arrogance took over, and now I feel like nothing more than a maid. I'd cater to his picky eating without complaint, clean like I was being followed by an overly critical mother-in-law, and is subjected to strict checks as if not allowing even a single speck of dust. I've even endured being ridiculed in front of relatives because we couldn't have children. Thankfully, my real mom stepped in, but the bullying from Mike never stopped. I'd been insulted numerous times when we were alone. I endured these humiliating days because I remembered the kind Mike I fell in love with. The love he gave me back then made me feel indebted, allowing me to smile through the worst. But what about now? The Mike in front of me seems like a completely different person. He yells at people based on his mood and finds my existence bothersome. Why would he live with someone like me? I'd rather he just throw me away if he finds me that bothersome. As these sad thoughts crossed my mind, Mike said the unthinkable. "You've become a drag. You used to be obedient, and you were pretty cute back in the day, which is why I married you. I didn't expect you to become this annoying wrinkled old lady. You frustrate me. You can't even have kids. What kind of wife are you? You're more like a maid. That's the way you are now." His words left me devastated and speechless. He doesn't see me as a woman anymore. I had a hunch, but hearing it directly from him was a massive shock. What were these 10 years for? I devotedly supported Mike as he worked hard, believing he loved me. I believed this rough patch would pass, and we'd return to our happier days. I believed I was the woman he cherished the most. Yet now, he looks at me like I'm trash, showing clear irritation. Is this the reward for supporting him for 10 years? If so, this feels like a cruel joke from the universe. My feelings of sorrow are turning to hatred, and then to anger. Being around you exhausts me. Unable to speak, I clenched my fist. Seeing me, Mike, annoyed, grabbed his cigarettes and went outside. His pants had his wallet and cell, so he probably won't come back tonight. As I thought, he didn't return that night. Staring at the door Mike left from, I was dumbfounded. I remembered the fun times, the days when I felt happy. My memories flashed before my eyes, and soon, in the solitude, I found myself crying out loud. That fight caused a significant rift between Mike and me. Perhaps sick of seeing my face, he'd come home late and leave after just changing clothes. I was too scared to talk, fearing his sharp words. If he were to ask for a divorce, I'd have nowhere to go. My parents passed away in a car accident right after I got married. Within a year of losing both of them, I felt like an empty shell, completely devastated. The one who supported me through it all was Mike. I genuinely believed, from the bottom of my heart, that marrying him was the best decision I ever made. From then on, Mike was my only family. I had no one else to turn to. The only connection I had was with my in-laws, but I could never bring myself to burden them with my woes. Even though they were incredibly kind to me, I believed no parents should have to listen to such complaints about their child. I even worried that, if I said something wrong, they might end up disliking me. Back then, I was so timid, always afraid to take action. I started to believe that I might spend my entire life just being there for Mike, almost like a housekeeper. Many nights, I lay in bed, these thoughts making me cry. Then, after a while, Mike came home in a surprisingly good mood. Even though we hadn't spoken in over 3 months, that day he came home while I was still awake, holding a box of cupcakes. Christine, here. What? I looked at him, startled by his sudden change in demeanor. Seeing my reaction, Mike laughed awkwardly, tilted his head, and was like, "Take it. I'm sorry for how I treated you that day. I regret being so cold. I want to go back to the happy days with you. Can we make up?" Seeing his apologize, I broke down in tears. The kind Mike I once knew seemed to be back. I hugged him tight, holding on to that glimmer of hope. From then on, he kept his word and treated me with care. He was as gentle as when we were dating, and he made an effort to come straight home after work. He was still very busy, but he always prioritized our time together and increased the moments we shared as a couple. You know, back then, our company was in a rough spot, and I was feeling pretty down. I think I took it out on you, and I'm so sorry for making you feel bad. One lazy weekend afternoon, as we were watching a movie side by side on the couch, Mike, while stroking my hair, shared his feelings. "No, I'm the one who should apologize. I blamed you without knowing the whole situation." Finally, the tension between us had eased. I believed that, as a couple, we would be able to spend happy days again. That was until one night when a call came through on his phone. During dinner, a call from a woman's name showed up on Mike's phone, which was quite unusual. He hurriedly answered it, looking quite panicked. He even stepped outside to take the call, maybe because he didn't want me to hear the conversation. Maybe it's an important business associate? However, that was the first time I felt something was off. Ever since we made up, Mike had taken all his calls in front of me. The only exception was during that terrible period of estrangement. Back then, thinking about it now, he'd always avoid taking calls in front of me. A sinking feeling crept in. Trying to get to the bottom of it, I probed. "It's rare for you to take a call outside. Someone from work?" "Oh, yeah, kind of. You know I'm gonna step down soon and venture into a new business, right? It was one of the employees consulting about that." Mike was planning to hand over his current real estate company to a trusted subordinate soon. He intended to manage another company as the chairman of the board, separate from his current one. "We have to start working hard all over again at a new company. Everyone seems anxious without me, so I keep getting calls asking for help. This change is quite a big deal for a company." Mike, unusually chatty, seemed to be trying too hard. His desperate attempt to deflect was obvious. When I saw Mike like that, a word flashed across my mind. The word was cheating. Mike might be cheating on me. As this thought crossed my mind, all my love for him cooled in an instant. It's tough, right? Don't push yourself too hard. In this way, I decided to thoroughly investigate Mike's cheating tendencies, brushing off his words. Thanks to my careful budgeting every month, my savings easily exceeded $30,000. Somehow navigating the unfamiliar internet, I found a lawyer skilled in dealing with infidelity cases and hired them immediately. I also hired a private investigator to track Mike's actions, and as I suspected, he was cheating on me with a 20-year-old girl from his workplace. Here's the report detailing their relationship duration. I was stunned as I went through the papers the detective showed me. Mike had been seeing this woman for over 5 years now, with some breaks in between. They rekindled their relationship the evening he called me during dinner. That's why that time. The rough patch between Mike and me was because he and this woman were getting along so well. Mike began to make amends with me because she had rejected him, and he was seeking comfort. I was just a convenient pawn for him. Realizing this, I decided to meet a certain individual. Taking advantage of the weekend Mike said he was on a business trip, I headed to a certain location. And I decided to take revenge on Mike. A while after his infidelity was exposed, Mike finally set up his new company. He smoothly stepped down as the CEO, and we celebrated with a lavish dinner at home. It's been tough being the boss, huh? It's gonna be even harder juggling both roles, but hang in there, okay? The atmosphere between Mike and me reverted to the tense standoffishness we had felt during our rough patch. Because he and his affair partner were getting along well. Investigations revealed that Mike's lover was extremely possessive and jealous, making Mike ignore me as a woman, just so he wouldn't get dumped. He deliberately created that atmosphere by being cold and distant, treating me like a punching bag when frustrated. She took advantage of the fact that I wasn't on social media and spilled everything on her own accounts. The detective found this, giving away all their thoughts. Thanks to this, I had all the evidence I needed. Now, all that was left was. While I was thinking about this, an irritated Mike let out a deep sigh and handed me a piece of paper. I don't want to eat your cooking. Wasting money on this, do you even realize who keeps you afloat? I wasn't giving you money every month for you to waste it like this. Mike stared at me furiously. But his gaze didn't intimidate me. I looked down at the piece of paper he handed me, and the word divorce jumped out at me. I've found someone else. Let's get a divorce. Mike, without any shame, demanded a divorce as if it was a given. He probably thought that, with the mental toll of the past 6 months, I'd accept a divorce readily. Though I saw right through him, I chose to remain silent. Fine. There we go. I quickly handed a signed contract of a lawyer who assists divorce back to him with a big smile. Seeing this, Mike was dumbfounded. He seemed to want to ask why so easy, but before he could, I began packing. But since I had seen his lover's social media and knew he was going to ask me for a divorce today, all I had to prepare was a bag with my essentials. I'll arrange for the movers myself. Let's settle the rest through our lawyers. Goodbye. Ignoring Mike's attempts to call me back, I swiftly left the house where, despite its hellish atmosphere, I had undoubtedly shared some happy moments. I say goodbye to the house and to a certain place. The next day, I called the company where Mike's lover worked. His cheating partner was an employee at the main branch where Mike was, and she was a new employee who had just joined the company. They made a mistake after a drinking party which led to their relationship. She's been pregnant for 5 months. The child she's carrying must be Mike's. That's what the two of them are probably thinking. To confront them with the shocking truth, I decided to call them over. Please come to the chairman's house tonight. I need to talk to you. The time is. I named her lover specifically over the phone and just passed on that message to her, who responded. Then, without any further conversation, I hung up and decided to wait for the night to deepen. The two arrived at the chairman's house at the agreed time. Mike, looking furious, stormed in. Perhaps he'd received frantic calls from his family home. Hey, Mom! What's going on? Why didn't you answer the phone? What's this? The moment Mike entered the living room, he loudly confronted his mother. But as soon as he saw the strange scene inside, both he and his lover were visibly shaken. Don't you get it by looking? I thought we'd all have a nice dinner together. I invited some of your relatives. The representatives of the Smith family were there, sipping whiskey and waiting for their return. Mike. It's been a while. We've heard you have something to tell us. That lady over there seems to be pregnant, isn't she? But we haven't prepared a seat for her. Relatives, unaware of the situation, voiced their confusion. However, only Mike's parents stayed calm, looking at Mike and his cheating partner with a gentle gaze. Mike, we've heard there's something you want to discuss with us. Is there something you need to say about that woman? It was his mother who broke the silence. She was kind and elegant, and although her tone was soft, her eyes were not smiling. In fact, she exuded a dark and intimidating aura, making Mike shiver. What do you mean by something I need to talk about? Don't play dumb, boy. I've heard everything from Christine. It was his father who dealt the final blow. His stern gaze was a stark contrast to his mother. The moment Mike heard those words, he looked at me in a panic and lashed out. What the hell did you do? You're not my wife anymore, so stay out of family matters. She's not your wife? What do you mean? Thanks to Mike's slip of the tongue, everyone from the Smith family looked at him with puzzled expressions, questioning his words. He's a really stupid man to push himself even further into his own situation. How did I ever fall for someone like him? While I was lost in my thoughts, his furious mother spoke out. How could you disregard such a wonderful wife and flirt around with other women? You're a disgrace to the Smith family. Realize your own foolishness. The mother-in-law, dressed in a formal dress, had the dignity of an old-school matriarch. Everyone was overwhelmed by her presence. The harsh words from her must have been terrifying for Mike. He was so overwhelmed that he fell backward onto his behind. You thought you managed a smooth divorce? Please, don't underestimate me. I've already gotten permission from your parents to demand the division of property. They've said they'd like to maintain a good relationship with me and kick you out of the Smith family. I approached the reeling Mike and whispered these words so only he could hear, showing him a sly smile. That day, I had tearfully explained everything to my in-laws. The moment I showed them all the evidence, they supported and comforted me. We never thought our son would do something so pathetic. Thank you for telling us, Christine. We're sorry for all the pain we've caused you. Thanks to the warmth of my in-laws, I felt genuine human kindness for the first time in a long while. Then, they happily cooperated with my plan. They informed all the relatives who had celebrated our marriage of the situation, ensuring no one would side with Mike. They had gathered everyone for this. Please never set foot in this house again. I don't ever want to see your face. His mother was like, That's a shame. Over and over again. Given the close bond between his father and his mother, cheating was unthinkable for them. The fact that their son had done it must have angered them immensely. Oh, I almost forgot. I turned to the mistress, who was watching the scene in shock. She looked at me with fearful eyes. To comfort her, I smiled gently, handed her a medical report, and revealed the shocking truth. You know that kid isn't Mike's, right? I dropped that bombshell, and his mistress looked stunned and panicked. Mike turned to us, trying to figure out what was going on. Mike and I had trouble conceiving. We got tested right before our divorce. Turns out, I'm perfectly fine. The problem was with Mike. The reason we couldn't have kids was because he's infertile. The medical report confirmed my statement wasn't a lie. How did you get pregnant with a child from infertile Mike? I'd love to know how you pulled that off. Care to enlighten me? I teased them with a playful tone, and the color drained from the mistress's face. Mike, in a fit of rage, began to confront her. He had to be held back by his father and the other men. I successfully drove a wedge between Mike and his mistress, leading them to break up. She ended up raising the child alone, while Mike begged to come back to me, but of course, I turned him away. I also proceeded with the divorce and got a decent chunk of change from the division of property through my lawyer. Presented with all the evidence, Mike was utterly defeated and complied with everything the lawyer demanded. After that, with the help of Mike's parents, I began working as a secretary in a company owned by his father. If there's anything we can do to help, just let us know. It's not about making amends for him. We truly see you as our daughter, Christine. His mother thanked me for seeking their counsel during those times. Even though you were going through so much, you were always kind to us. We looked forward to your letters and gifts, always hoping you'd visit us soon. She said, showing me the letters and dried flowers I had sent, which she stored carefully in a keepsake box. You can always lean on us if you want. Don't be shy, consider this your second home. Mike, who was disowned, was not allowed to even set foot in the Smith residence. By a month's time, he stopped trying to forcibly visit. Now that things have settled, I live with his parents. His mother, concerned about me living alone, invited me to stay. Why don't you become our adopted daughter? They loved me so much, and now I live happily with them, just like their own daughter.